Senator Patty Murray of our state says she has spent some of this summer touring facilities across the country where migrant children are being held.
All right, so her visits come as Immigration and Customs Enforcement also allowed local reporters recently, including our own Brandi Kruse, into the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma last week. ICE says it wants to get its side of the story out about how their operations are run there. So Brandi's here once again. You know, you spoke to the senator about some of her experiences visiting these types of facilities in other states, but also in our own as well.
Yeah, and it's important to look. It's important to get in there and to see these things for yourself. You know, it was nice to get into the Northwest Detention Center, something, to my knowledge, ICE has never allowed reporters to do. And for the senator, in my conversation with her yesterday, she said it was important for her to see some of these things firsthand. So keep in mind, there are a lot of different types of facilities that ICE or Border Patrol run. What I saw last week was a detention facility. Some of the facilities that Senator Murray visited are what's called, well, they're Office of Refugee resettlement shelters. So these are where migrants, sometimes migrant children, go, and they're kind of held until they're integrated into society. Specifically, I talked to her about two of these shelters that she visited in the state of Arizona. So in Arizona, your office sent us a little bit of what you saw. It says that you spoke with shelter staff, observed children napping, in group therapy, in recreational settings, saw housing, dining, medical, mental health, education, recreational facilities. That all sounds like things that we should be glad to see happening. But then later on, they said that it felt like you didn't maybe get the full picture in Arizona. Is that because you didn't get to speak to the children?
Well, it was more than that. I felt it was a very sanitized version of what they wanted me to see. I was not allowed to talk to the children, which was disconcerting, but I was shown rooms that were sanitized is the correct word. I mean, beds for toddlers made to a T, children sleeping, very, very young children, months old, sleeping, all of them asleep, asking where the mothers were and being told, well, they're in class. It didn't feel right to me as someone who's been around kids and families a lot, so that was deeply disconcerting.
So you felt like this was a mock-up, that you were not shown reality.
I felt that myself, that I wasn't seeing a real picture. I was being shown what they wanted me to see, to be able to say, it's clean, the children have a good facility here, there's people here who are watching them.
So is there any way that you can actually definitively say they were putting on a show for me, as opposed to it just being a gut feeling of yours?
Well, what I think is really important is that we insist that the internal investigations of the department done by their own inspector generals occur, because they can go in unannounced and ask questions and do follow-up, and that we have people who are given that ability to go in unannounced and see and ask specifically to the children questions, but also to the caregivers. I can be told someone has a resume, but I don't have eyes onto that resume to know if they have any background in children and how to care for them, or mental health issues of children, and that's extremely important.
And so look, I think the senator made a good point. This is an interview we taped yesterday, by the way, so that a little bit of it. I think she makes a good point there that look, I appreciate ICE allowing us into one of their facilities last week. I'm sure the senator appreciates being able to get into some of these shelters as well. Now, the question is, are we seeing the full reality of the situation? It's hard to tell, right? And so the point she makes about having inspectors who can go in at a moment's notice, walk in without them getting prepared for a visit, you know, that is important to really get a full picture of what happens in these facilities on a daily basis.
Right. And then we're going to hear more from Senator Murray later this morning. What would she like to see done here?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that at 9:30 this morning. I had a conversation with her about that as well. I think one of the things we have to consider is, you know, regardless of what your stance is on immigration or what migrants we're letting in or not letting in, you know, a lot of these children who end up in these Office of Refugee resettlement shelters, and there is one in the Seattle area that the senator toured, they're going to be integrated into our society at some point. And so something that the senator says is important to her is making sure that they get the education that they need while they're there, they get the services that they need while they're there, so that transition into society here in a place that is new to them can be as smooth as possible. And that really should be something that's uncontroversial, right? We should want to make sure these kids that are in these shelters have a good shot when they get out and integrate into society.
I get that. All right, Brandi, thanks.
Yeah.